Have you ever been bullied? If you have, you know the pain and humiliation of being taunted, excluded, and gossiped about. Bullies come in all shapes and sizes. They can be parents, adults, teens, or children. They can be beautiful, bright, and popular, or none of these at all. But one thing they all have in common is they show unfair contempt for another human being. Bullying, as our esteemed guest Barbara Coloroso says, is a conscious, willful, and deliberate hostile activity intended to harm, induce fear through the threat of further aggression, and create terror. Being bullied is really the antithesis of bliss. Hi, I'm Judy Librach. Tonight we are going to break the cycle of bullying. Barbara Coloroso is an international best-selling author and parenting educator who has appeared on Oprah, CBS, NBC, ABC, and CNN, in Canada, CBC, CTV, and Global, just to name a few, as well as being featured in the New York Times, Time Magazine, US News, and World Report. She is the author of numerous international bestsellers, including Kids Are Worth It, Raising Resilient, Responsible, and Compassionate Kids. And Just Because It's Not Wrong Doesn't Make It Right, From Toddlers to Teens, Teaching Kids to Think and Act Ethically. Her most recent book, Extraordinary Evil, A Brief History of Genocide, and the #1 bestseller, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, is The Bully, the Bullied, and the Bystander, an updated edition with a section on cyberbullying. It gives me great pleasure, and it's an extreme honor to introduce Barbara Coloroso to the program.
Thank you, Judy. It's just a joy to be here with such a beautiful set and a heavy, heavy topic, and having an hour to actually work on it instead of very short clips.
Absolutely.
I appreciate this.
And if I may share with our audience, and this was quite incredible when I heard about this, Barbara was actually asked to do CNN this evening, a live CNN headline news report, and she said no, she declined because of us here at Rogers TV on Finding Your Bliss. So really,
happy to do it. Happy to do it.
We're very, very honored. You were featured on Anderson Cooper, Barbara, talking about bullying, which is very much in the news these days.
Yes.
Frightening story after story is coming across, and we have anti-bullying laws. We have zero tolerance. Why is this on the rise? Why is bullying so prevalent?
Because laws don't really make the change that's needed. It's kind of like a catalyst for it. That it's like in the civil rights movement in the States. Martin Luther King marched. But it wasn't until the laws took effect that it began to really force people to take a serious look about changing our hearts and our attitudes. The same thing has to happen with bullying. Bullying is about utter contempt for another human being. And once I have contempt for you, I can do anything to you and not feel any shame or compassion, and fail to recognize that the harm I'm causing you is seriously, as you say, taking away your bliss, taking away your sense of well-being and your health, mentally and physically and emotionally. So it's on the rise for lots of reasons, but I have to say it's a complicated answer when I say yes, it's on the rise, because we've also become much more aware. I'm very, very hopeful of this next generation because they recognize that hazing is a form of bullying. I'm 64. My generation saw it as a rite of passage and something in the norm, not normal, but norm. If you look at bullying as getting pleasure from somebody else's pain, these kids who are quote unquote welcoming kids into their new group, put them through humiliating, degrading activities. We have to come up with better rituals of initiation that don't degrade or humiliate. But I see this generation and the coaches and the adults working with kids saying, no more, not here, never. This is not to be tolerated anymore. We have a long way to go in breaking that, but I see our young people much more ready to do it. If only bullies knew the pain they were causing their targets, they wouldn't do it. And I said, not true. If only they cared that they were causing the pain. It's the difference between ignorance and apathy. I saw a wonderful 15-word t-shirt. What's the difference between ignorance and apathy? On the back it said, I don't know and I don't care. It's not the I don't know, and so many of our anti-bullying programs will get kids to understand what bullying is and that you shouldn't be doing it. But we have to work on helping kids care not to hurt somebody. But you have to look at it as you have to be taught to hate.
Back to the bully, the bullied, and the bystander. Those are three of the characters. There's a fourth character in the drama. Can you sort of describe the three characters?
Yes. The bully comes in all different sizes and shapes. You can't tell a bully by how he or she looks. It's how they act. They have utter contempt for another human being. It's about being mean and cruel and getting pleasure from the pain you inflict on somebody else. It's that not caring that you're inflicting the pain that's so devastating to the targeted kid. And so if we look at that character, we often have this myth that these are hurting kids, and indeed some of them are. There are 7 different kinds of bullies. But many of the kids we see in the news today are high-status social bullies who decide that they can put this other person, whether they're tall, short, their race, religion, gender, physical or mental ability, the fact that they're new, they're beautiful, they're bright. You can be targeted simply because you're new, or you're beautiful, or you're not so beautiful. The one thing all targeted kids have in common is somebody targeted them. And so they take that person, and in order to inflate their own ego, they deflate that other human being. To increase their own social status, they deflate. Or if they think this person is going to rise above them, they've got to put them down.
Got to put them down.
And they do it in mean and vicious ways. Being mean is being a bully. Nothing ever, ever, ever justifies mean.
Mean. We're going to hold that thought for one moment while we go to break. Stay tuned for more on bullying, how parents and teachers can help break the cycle of violence when we come back. We've been talking about all of the characters in the bullying scenario, and I know we have a caller on the air. We're going to get right to you. To continue with those, we've talked about the bully, we've talked about how the bullied is targeted, they're not the victim. Yeah. And then we've got this third character, the bystander.
Yes, and they're not so innocent bystanders. Right below the bully, you have the bully's henchmen. Those are kids who were raised to do to please, and they do to please us when they're young, but they do to please their peers when they're older. Those are those kids who will go along with the bully because they want to be in that social group. Then you have the active supporters, the kids who cheer the bully on, videotape and record and put on YouTube the horror things that are being done to another kid. Those are active supporters. Then you have the passive supporters, and you and I won't know about them unless we listen carefully in carpool and we overhear our daughter going, ha ha ha, do you know what those girls did to the new girl? Or we overhear our son going, ha ha ha, do you know what those boys did to that small boy in the locker room? They're not doing it, but they're getting pleasure from somebody else's pain. They are part of the problem. At the very bottom of the circle, we have a deadly lot, which can include you and me. And that's the disengaged onlooker who turns a blind eye and say, bullying's part of growing up. Boys will be boys, girls just want to be mean.
It's just teasing. And you make a big differentiation.
It's not.
Teasing and taunting,
cruel.
Right?
Yes, teasing is what friends do. Taunting is what bullies do. On the upswing of the bully circle is the kid you did raise to act with integrity and civility and compassion. But for lots of reasons, they're afraid of that bully. They're afraid if they step in, they'll be next. They're afraid if they step in, nobody will believe them. They're afraid if they step in, they'll make it worse for the target. But all of them are still a part of the bullying. The very top is the antithesis of the bully. Right across from that bully is that witness, resistor, and defender, the 3 roles young people can play to break this cycle of violence. The witness, the kid who's willing to report it, at great cost to himself, I might say, often being accused of tattling or ratting on their peers.
As opposed to telling.
Yeah.
And you make a big differentiation in your book between telling and tattling as well.
Exactly.
Tattling is, I'm tattling. Telling
to get somebody in trouble.
Right. Telling is to protect somebody from being in trouble.
Yes, and get them out of trouble and keep somebody else out of trouble. Resistor, a kid who's going to say to the bully, back off, leave him alone. He's not such a bad kid. Or a defender who will say to the kid, come on, come play with me. You don't need that group of kids. I want kids to know those 3 roles are very viable, healthy roles for all of us. And that will bring, using your show's theme, bliss to all of us. When we rewrite the script for all of these kids and create a more deeply caring environment where kids believe that they are welcomed. I tell children, you don't have to like every kid in your class, you don't. But you must honor their humanity and treat them with dignity and regard.
Barbara, I can't believe this hour has gone by. I want to thank you so much for coming to visit us at Rogers TV anytime. And it's really been an honor and a rich learning experience. I think you're really completing what you began as a nun at 17 by doing the beautiful work that you do in the world. So we thank you here at Finding Your Bliss. As Barbara Coloroso says in Kids Are Worth It, it all begins with teaching children how to become compassionate, responsible human beings who can act in their own best interest, stand up for themselves while respecting the rights and needs of others. It all begins by treating kids and each other with respect and kindness. We need to teach kids to act with integrity when confronted with peer pressure, to do what is right no matter what, and to be empowered to act with courage and goodness. Kindness is the best antidote to bullying. Teaching kindness, teaching kids how to act ethically and to care deeply, as Barbara Coloroso says about others. Remember, never let anybody steal your happiness. Being kind is always the right decision. As Dale Carnegie once said, perhaps you will forget tomorrow the kind words you say today, but the recipient may cherish them for a lifetime. I'm Judy Librach. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special edition of Finding Your Bliss.